Hello, welcome to this week's newsletter. I hope you're all well. Now, in last week's newsletter I showed a cushion that I'd made using an embellishing machine and I got a lot of response to that. So if you'd like to know more, there is a free video on DMTV where I make a little simple landscape and then stitch it by hand. You'll find that in the projects classroom. And if you want to know more than that, there are also some projects that we've covered in the past, and Laura's made those videos available again now, and again you'll find those in the projects classroom. And it's, a really versatile technique, needle felting. It's something I come back to time and time again. And I thought today you might be interested to see the very circuitous route that led me to using that technique for some little objects which I'll show you in a moment. And it all came about following a visit to the Pitt Rivers Museum in Oxford. Now, normally the inspiration for my work comes very much from the area around me, my daily environment, from nature, from just family and interests that we've got that keep us occupied and busy. But that museum is so crammed to the rafters with the most amazing artifacts. I came away absolutely buzzing with ideas, and I used them to make a whole series of quilts, and I filled a sketchbook. So this whole sketchbook is full of work that I'd done, looking at the colours and the shapes and the nature of the materials of some of the objects that I saw in the museum. And when you're working into a sketchbook, you don't necessarily know where it's going to lead, but you get really to know your subject inside out. So it's something I'd always encourage you to do. Even if you're not really into drawing and painting, you can keep a book and you can put in, ephemera, leaflets that you pick up, scribble notes and photographs, all sorts of different uses. But my sketchbook was very kind of painterly. And I used a lot of bleach, which led me to make the two quilts that are behind me here, and some larger quilts that I've also made, where this is a black fabric that I've actually bleached back. And it's given me, I think, that kind of elemental feel that I saw in some of the objects, the artifacts in the museum. What appealed to me very much when I was there was the idea of a talismanic protective spirit. And I think that's something, in these times that we're all living through, we all need a bit of protective spirit, don't we? But anyway, this predates the coronavirus, but you can see my little quilts have these little pockets. Now, these came about that you could create a little container and you could put a secret thought or wish or protective quote inside your little pocket, and then you could stitch it closed, so you would know it was there. It had that protective quality, but nobody else necessarily could see what your secret was that you'd hidden away. And so these little quilts, they're embellished and adorned with a number of these little pockets, yet to have a secret put into them and to be stitched closed. And you can see I kept to a very limited colour palette, because the objects that I was inspired by they all were quite old. They were very natural materials, so we were looking at hide and wood and even grasses, woven grasses, that kind of thing. So that influenced the colours that I was using and very much the shapes that I was using. So I was looking at shield shapes on African shields, and that led to a whole number of quilts. But I said to you it was a circuitous route that I came through to using wool. But a lot of those objects were, natural objects from that culture. And so they would have hide and they would have fibres. And I thought, well, wool, I'll go to wool. So if I just grab a handful here, you can see when I do something, I don't do it by halves. I've got hundreds of these little needle felted, talismanic, what will be pockets, and they reflect the shapes and the colours that I was seeing in the source of inspiration. So there's a shield shape one, and I've kept to a lot of it is just kind of bone white with charcoal grey and little flashes of red. So again, this limited colour palette that I'm using. Now all of these are waiting to be incorporated into what I think will be a hanging with lots of these little pockets that I can, you know, they're receptacles, I can put something secret inside them. But at the moment they're just a stash. I have got some that were taken a little bit further because I loved the thought of the idea of the pocket being worn by the person as a talisman. So some of these I've put a little brooch fastening on the back, and you could imagine you could wear that on the lapel of a jacket and it'd be quite decorative. I've got quite a number of these, and again you see I've used the shield shape quite often, and a lot of them are beaded. So I've got the little pocket so I can insert something precious, and I've beaded on 3 sides. Now I rarely work on one thing at a time. I've usually got several irons in the fire, and I was making this bag. I needed a nice strong robust bag that I'd be able to use on a daily basis, and you might be able to spot here I've actually incorporated one of the talisman images by needle punching that into the technique I've said is inspired by Boro, so a Japanese technique. And you might think just using felt and needle felting it, punching it, you might think that's only a very soft surface. But if, like me, you cannibalise a quilt, so I've chopped up an old quilt here that had, you know, it's done its duty, it's been to exhibition, what have you, and I didn't have a use for it at home. I've chopped up that quilt and used it to line the bag and to create the gusset shapes here. So it's made a very, very strong and very functional object. So I think that shows the versatility of the technique and how everything looks completely different depending on what your source of inspiration is. So do check out the videos that we've got and see if any of that appeals to you. And Laura, this last week, has worked very hard to bring back some past videos that we've had requests for that haven't been available for some time. So check those out as well. There's all sorts. There must be something to appeal to everybody. So have a little browse, and I hope you'll find something that is just what you were looking for. So thanks for watching me here today. Enjoy the rest of the newsletter and have a browse at DMTV when you've got a moment free. So talk to you again very soon. Bye for now.